Welcome to the Crazy Chicken People podcast. If you're crazy about chickens, then you're in the right place. Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Crazy Chicken People podcast. I hope that everyone had a great Christmas and is getting ready for the New Year's. I think that my chickens got about as many gifts as anyone else did around my place, and they were definitely happy. And as happy as I was to get them some of those new treats or the new toys that I had made, I was also looking at what sort of things I could do around the coop this year to improve their living situation a little bit and to make caring for them a little bit easier for me. And as I was just sitting in their run, I was just kind of watching them get after their new flock block. I had just bought them. If you're not familiar with that, it's this cube. I want to say it's about 8 inches by 8 inches. And it's just a big packed block of what looks like mostly scratch, maybe held together with molasses or something like that. I probably should know exactly what's in there since I gave it to them. But I saw it, I got it, and I just put it in there on Christmas morning for them. Anyhow, as I was watching them get after this thing, I started making some notes about the different ideas I've had for some projects that I'd like to do. And as I'm looking at it, I thought, wow, this looks like a New Year's resolution list for chickens. And that's pretty much exactly what it was. In my case, one that I need to have mostly resolved by this March when we have a vacation planned. And it'll be by far the longest that I've ever been away from my flock. And I'm already kind of feeling uneasy about it. I mean, my wife would tell you, if I even get home late from work one day or we're gone for a while on the weekend, I start to feel a little bit uneasy if I haven't seen my chickens. I think that I'm still a little bit shocked from months ago when I did have a major attack here and I lost a lot of birds over the span of a couple of days when I wasn't home. And though it's probably not healthy for me, I've kind of held on to that, and it's just always on my mind that something could go wrong when I'm not around. So what I'd like to do now to make sure that it's easy for the person who's taking care of my animals while I'm gone, and even for me when I get back, is I really want to make sure that the majority of the care that they'll need is at least as automated as possible. So I felt like, okay, this New Year's resolution list for chicken keeping would be a good episode, and it'll help me to figure out everything that I need to have ready between now and when I leave. So with that, we will get right into this list. And the first item, something that's always on my mind, is to improve the security around our coops. I do feel like they're pretty dang safe right now, especially after the last situation that I dealt with. I think I mentioned I had moved those birds into the barn. I did a major overhaul on that coop and run and really made sure that that thing is very secure. But even with that, I think there's always ways to improve it. I mean, I can think of a couple things right off the top of my head that I've kind of been a little bit too loose on. For example, there's a couple of the exterior walls of the run where I don't have anything in the ground to protect against digging underneath. And I've let that go because I felt this area was pretty safe. Right on the other side of the run from there is the paddock where my goats and my donkey are at. So I'm not real worried about like a coyote getting in there or even a raccoon. I think that my goats, my donkey are going to chase all those things off. But like so many things, I also remember that the moment you start feeling too safe about something is usually when you're reminded that there could still be a problem. So as I walk around this coop and run, I want to make sure that every wall is protected from digging underneath. There's definitely some things I can do to fix that. The walls themselves and the roof are in really good shape. You know, back when Goldilocks was climbing out of that run all the time, I really went through and tightened it up. I put hardware cloth over the majority of the run, tightened up all the corners. It's really in good shape, but now I look at things like, okay, can a blue jay get into here? Now, I'm not worried about a blue jay actually attacking my chickens, but last spring we definitely had problems with them getting at our eggs. And at that point, keeping those things out was number one on my list. You would think that the raccoon or the fox or whatever it was that got in would have been kept out since I was trying to make it blue jay safe, but there's always something that can be missed. I know that I'll feel a lot better leaving for more than a week if that thing is totally solid Maybe I'll challenge my kids to try to get their arm in there somewhere. And as long as they can't do that, I'll feel pretty good about it. Okay, next thing on the list is trying to get my flock more free range time. I've had to take a big step backwards in this area because of the problems we did have before with predators and with neighboring animals that are apparently just allowed to run free through the neighborhood. And while I won't totally free range anymore, I still want to be able to let the girls out, give them some time to run around, do some foraging. And ideally, I'd like to set it up so they can do this unsupervised, but I do need to be much smarter about it this time around. And so for me, that's going to mean making some repairs and some upgrades to the fencing that currently keeps our sheep in and the dogs out. Now, this space is just on the other side of the coop, and I'm thinking I could do one of those automatic or daylight triggered coop doors. I'd like to set it up so that it opens about the same time I get home from work and then closes in the evening. At least then I could give them a quick check when I get here, make sure everything's okay, maybe even set it up so that I just open it up manually when I get back. But I'd really want to make sure that they're getting some time outside of their run. I feel bad that they've been cooped up in there for so long now. I've let them out a few times just to run around, but then I quickly scurry them back in because I'm worried about them. So I think if I could set something up where at least a few days a week or a lot on the weekends, they can get out and about, that they're going to be a lot happier. And it's going to help with the next thing I want to talk about, which is finding a way to bring some costs down. There's certain aspects of chicken keeping that are always going to be an expense, probably no matter what. And we did cover a bunch of different ways you can save some money on things like enrichment activities, bedding, snacks. But I think there's still some simple things that I can do to help with some of those fixed costs like feed. Now, while I am very happy with the feed that I've been getting them, and I think it's doing well for them, I want to look at some of the local options for buying in bulk. I know there's a couple mills in my area that offer 250-pound barrels of feed at a pretty well reduced price when you compare it to buying it by the bag. And then if I can supplement some of their nutritional needs with some of the free ranging that I mentioned I want to do and other natural whole foods, I think that this could help out a little bit at least. So to help out with that, I think one thing I can do is to build them a couple of large grazing boxes within their run. Now, if you haven't seen this or heard of it, it's pretty much just creating a planter box that's covered with wire. I've seen the usual hardware cloth used, but I was going to use 1/2 by 1 inch size rather than 1/2 by 1/2. This will still be plenty strong to walk on so that they can get on top of it. But when they eventually do poop on it, it won't clog up like the 1/2 inch hardware cloth does. And it'll allow that poop to get back down into the planter bed and act as a fertilizer rather than just something I need to clean up. So you build this planter bed, and I think I'm going to go maybe 8 or 10 inches up from the surface of the soil and put that wire on. And then at that point, I'm not much of a gardener, so I really don't mind if even just weeds and grass grow up through there. I will throw some seeds in there, hopefully try to sprout some kale, maybe some spinach, definitely some of the herbs that we've talked about that are really good for them. But again, if that grows next to some weeds and whatever else pops up, I'm really totally okay with that too, because they're also probably going to be good for the chickens. And that's nice for me, a guy who really doesn't have a green thumb. I've grown some tomatoes and peppers before, but I'm usually not real good with a garden. I'm hoping that because I go in the coop and run so often anyways, I'll be in there, I can throw the plants some water or whatever it is that they need. And between that and the added fertilizer they're going to get from all those chickens running over the top of them, that it'll be pretty healthy. And I won't end up with just a barren plot of dirt like I have in previous gardens I've tried. I think this will also add some fun for the chickens once the plants start sprouting. I've seen them in videos jumping up on top of these things, and they really try to dig in there and get whatever's sprouting up through. Hopefully they let it grow enough to where the plants actually can start to thrive. We'll see how that goes. I may need to research this a little bit more just to see exactly what setup would work best. But once I have it put together and it seems like it's doing the job, hopefully this will also put a small dent in that overall cost of food and snacks. Okay, next one, and this really plays into that period where I'm going to be gone for over a week. I know the person coming to take care of my chickens would be just fine with making sure, every 3 or 4 days they fill up a water bucket. But, keeping those water buckets full is one of the more time consuming and harder things to do. I don't have a hose near any of my coops, so I do have to carry the water over there. And I know I've mentioned it before, but I really want to get like a 35 or 50-gallon water container, something up high in the coop that can gravity feed down. I think I could provide water to 3 of our coops just from one spot by doing this. And I know that if I set that up, I won't have to worry about water that entire time that I'm gone. And then in the summertime, as long as I have that water jug in a good spot where it's not getting direct sunlight, I'll still have to add some ice or something, I guess, but I think this will help out a lot in the summertime as well. And really, it should save me some time every week, too. I mean, filling and lugging around those water containers, cleaning out the buckets from time to time, it all adds up, and my time is valuable. So if I can cut 15 or 20, 30 minutes out of my routine every week, that would be a big plus for me. Okay, my 5th chicken resolution for the year is going to be improving my pest control, and specifically with mice. You've probably heard me mention before, where we live, having mice around is just going to be part of the deal. There's nothing I can do to get rid of them altogether, but I do want to keep them out of the coop and run at least as much as I can. And while I haven't found a successful way to do this yet, I have a feeling that getting a couple more barn cats may be part of the solution. Beyond that, I'll be continuing to look for ways that I can keep food off the ground and set up in such a way that the mice can't climb into the feeders. That worked really well with the trash can style feeders that I mentioned, just adjusting the cinder block for. So if I can find a similar method for my other feeders, I think that that will go a long ways. And maybe it's just because it's winter, so the mice are more crowded around these warmer areas, but I've been seeing so many of them lately. I mean, I'm running out of glue traps, and I think they're getting wise to some of the other traps that I have around. I've also been noticing the 2 cats that we do have, at least one of them has been spending a lot of time around the barn lately. She must know that the mice are just everywhere. I know that she loves hunting them, so maybe getting a couple more that just stay down at the barn would help. But I know I don't like seeing them everywhere. I hate having to clean their poop off of everything, and I bet the chickens don't like it much either. So that's a big one. If I start finding some things that are working out for me, I'll definitely share that with you because I'm sure everyone has this problem. And if you live in a neighborhood, you don't want to be the person that's attracting all the mice and rodents. So I'd be happy to share those things with you once I find something that works out good. Now, those are my biggest ones, the things that I really want to try to take care of right away. Some of the others that I've been thinking about would be improving biosecurity, just making sure that I'm doing whatever I can to keep any outside sicknesses away from my birds. Maybe you're coming into your first egg season and you really want to get a handle on your storage and your collection methods for those. Or maybe you've noticed that your coop needs a little work. Could be waterproofing or ventilation, maybe a new nesting box setup. I've never been a big New Year's resolution type guy, but I do think this is a good time to take a step back, look at my setup, see what I can improve without having to spend a ton of money. And hopefully these are things that'll pay off for not just my chickens, but myself and my time as well. Okay, guys, that's it for this one. I wanted to say thank you to everyone that's emailed me here in this past week. Thank you again for listening today, and Happy New Year, everybody.